Hey folks, wanted to work through here real briefly how to get BKChem up and running on your computer, because I know that's been the bigger hurdle of getting this lab itself working. So I'm here on the data page. Let me get this smaller. All right, and the first thing I want to bring up is I have the link to the site directly. If for some reason that doesn't work, right here is your Windows version and there is your Macintosh version. And hopefully we won't need this. All right, but I'm gonna go right here to the website, and biggest problem most people have with this, almost everybody who has Windows expects their download to be the top one, which makes sense. Windows is the most commonly used. But in this case, the first two are Linux, because this site's more for people like me that run that one instead. So you will want this program right down here that has the extension exe, and if you're running on the Mac, you'll want the one right below that. And if you want to try the newest version, they're down here at the very bottom. I don't know why they refer to it as the newest version. It's still technically in what they call alpha. It works fine. It just has some small minor bug changes, or maybe a better way to say that, there's some bugs in version 0.13 and there's different bugs in version 0.14. But we're going to use 13 because that's the version I have this set up. So all we're going to do is just download this and then install it. And theoretically, you should just be able to click on that and it will pop up this nice little window. Now, I couldn't do the install perfectly right on this computer because this computer doesn't give me access, to the hard drive like the program wants. It's going to want to put it in the program file directory. On your computer, that should be no problem. So I had to install it slightly different, but once it's installed, I hit start the program, because I do want to cancel that, and it would pop right up. Now, once you install it, if it doesn't pop up, more than likely it's going to give you an error message saying it's looking for this program right here, this msvcr71.dll. If it asks for that, you can go through the process of having Windows try to find it, but this program is not used by many things, so a lot of the programs that Microsoft expects it to be in, it's no longer in. It's an old library file. So I just attached it here. So if your program is asking for it, if you download that file and just put it in the folder wherever your BKChem got installed, everything should be fine. But I'm on a relatively vanilla form of Windows, and it worked fine. So hopefully that's going to be the case for you as well. All right, once we get it up and running, this is what BKChem will start out as. Now, there is a couple things we're going to do right off the bat just to make things work better. Under options and then under standard, there's two things I normally do right away. And the first one is to change my font to something more standard, like Arial. And I also changed the font size to 10. I don't think it makes that big of a difference, but I think it centers a little bit better on the structures. And then the other thing that I do is under paper, I make sure this little box here is checked. It says auto crop images. We'll see what that does later on. And then you just hit save and you're good to go. Now, if any of those things changed, close BKChem and reopen it, and that should make sure you don't get any weird errors. All right, I'm going to go through the little icons here to give you a brief rundown of what we can do on this thing. The first one, the bonds and the atoms, that does give us the ability to draw our molecules. And I really am just selecting the next little location and clicking. And if I want to add a double bond, I just highlight one of those and click again. And if I want to choose a different angle, I hold down my mouse and I can just swing this around and I can put that bond wherever I want it. I'm going to put that one down. And pop back up here through that. And right next to it, I have my little templates with rings. So I'm going to put a benzene right off the end of that location. All right, still have some edit dots on there. I can always make those go wide by clicking that little first arrow and then just clicking anywhere, and all those lines go away. All right, so I have a general molecule right now. Now, if you notice, it just looks like it drew lines. Now, technically, each of these is a carbon right now, and BK Chem knows that. Matter of fact, if I wanted to label one of these, like clicking on this atom thing, if I wanted to label that as a carbon, if I click on it, see how it popped up and said it is a carbon? Well, if I hit enter, it didn't do anything. And that really is because BK Chem knows that in calculate structures, we don't label carbons. So what I'm going to do to force it to be labeled, I'm going to have that again, but over here with this H to H, lowercase h to h, that forces it to label it. Now, any other atom, if I want to change this to alcohol, so an OH, I really do just type in OH and it will change it. So any other changes, it will just go in without question. And this is a terminal carbon. We know it's actually a single carbon with 3 hydrogens. If I wanted to label that, I actually can do that. And if I just type it in like that, you know, so no subscripts when I have a lowercase h, well, if I hit enter, BK Chem will fix that. Because BK Chem knows, well, you must have meant hydrogens and carbons, so let me typo fix that. All right, the next thing that we might need later on in the semester is to add lone pairs of electrons on an atom. Now, I really don't have anything to get lone pairs, so let's actually change this right here to an oxygen. If this was a Lewis structure, that oxygen should have 2 pairs of electrons on it. And BK Chem can do that. The very next little icon has radicals, diradicals, and more importantly, dotted electron pairs, which is what we're going to use here. So I'm just selecting that, and I'm going to click this. And right away, BK Chem puts that as far away from the other 2 bonds as possible, which is why it's straight up. And I actually don't want it there because I know oxygen needs a pair of electrons. So I'm going to just move that over by holding my mouse down and dragging it, and then clicking, and it'll put the other one in there. And I'm going to try to make these look symmetrical, or like they went on together. BK Chem's not really made to actually show electron pairs. These are mostly calculate structures. That's why it doesn't look perfect, but that's okay. We're perfectly fine with that. All right, I am going to move this a little by selecting it and dragging. And I did that because the last thing I'm going to show you is sometimes we like to show reactions that use those electron pairs, which is why you're able to draw them. Reactions and mechanisms will have reaction arrows. So we're going to put one starting there. You notice how that made that arrow like that? Well, I don't want it. I want it to come over here and attack something else. So these little spline arrows, we're able to rotate them and move them around. And practice makes perfect on those. You start clicking on this stuff, and these little programs will start to make a little bit more sense in how they work. But you would kind of just want to play around with the arrows now. We won't be needing them yet. That's going to be later on with some of our later projects. For this lab, I just have a few structures I want you to draw and then upload the images from them. And to get the images, I'm going to remove that arrow because I don't want the arrow on my image. I'm going to go up here and hit export, and the image that I would recommend you use, that PNGs, and if you select it and just hit OK here, none of this stuff should matter because we set up that auto crop. We're going to want to name it. I'm just going to copy over that little thing, so that's useless, and hit save. Tell it to replace that. And if I bring this up, there's that structure we just drew. All right, that should get you started. Let me know if you have any problems.